The yellow school bus rumbled down the road, its engine humming a familiar tune that resonated with the rhythm of the children's chatter inside. Sunbeams painted the seats warm and bright, casting playful shadows that danced with the movement of the bus. Laughter filled the air, a symphony of joy and innocence. It was another ordinary day, or so it seemed. Timmy chewed his thumbnail, staring out the window. The passing scenery usually comforted him, but today something felt off. The trees seemed to whisper secrets, and the road ahead looked unusually deserted.
Why are we going this way? Timmy's voice cut through the laughter, tinged with a hint of anxiety.
Timmy asked, his voice barely a whisper, as if speaking louder would make his fears more real. Sarah, his older sister, rolled her eyes, a gesture she had perfected over years of dealing with her younger brother's worries.
Don't be such a scaredy cat. It's just a shortcut. Her tone was dismissive, but it carried the weight of sibling authority.
Mr. Harris, their jovial bus driver, smiled reassuringly in the rearview mirror. His eyes twinkled with a calm confidence that usually put everyone at ease.
Road construction on the usual route, nothing to worry about. His voice was cheerful, but Timmy couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss.
Timmy wasn't convinced. His gut told him that this was more than just a detour. He felt a shiver crawl up his spine, a cold, creeping sensation that made him pull his jacket tighter around himself. As the bus turned onto a desolate road, the familiar surroundings gave way to an eerie emptiness. The trees seemed to close in, and the sky grew overcast, casting a gloomy shadow over the landscape. A rusty sign creaked in the wind, its faded letters barely legible. Twin Pines Industrial Complex. Keep out. The sign seemed to whisper a warning, and Timmy's unease grew stronger. What lay ahead on this unfamiliar path? The bus rattled past crumbling buildings, weeds sprouted through cracks in the asphalt. An unsettling silence replaced the previous laughter. The air grew heavy, thick with an unseen tension.
This place gives me the creeps,
whispered Emily, a girl with pigtails sitting behind Timmy.
Me too,
chimed in her friend Jessica, her eyes wide with fear. Sarah just scoffed.
You guys are so gullible. It's just an old factory.
Timmy wanted to believe her, but a growing unease twisted in his stomach. He couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching them. The bus slowed down, navigating a particularly rough patch of road. And that's when Timmy saw it. A hulking shape moving in the shadows of a dilapidated warehouse. It was massive, easily twice the size of the bus. Its fur was matted and tangled, covered in what looked like grime and oil. Two eyes glowing an eerie yellow fixed on the bus. Timmy gasped, his heart pounding in his chest.
Mr. Harris, look!
He cried, pointing. The creature let out a deafening roar, a guttural sound that shook the very foundation of the abandoned factory. It was a sound that spoke of primal rage, of untamed hunger. The bus erupted in chaos. Children screamed, their faces pale with terror. Sarah's earlier bravado vanished, replaced by pure, unadulterated fear. Mr. Harris slammed on the brakes.
Everyone stay calm,
he shouted, his voice barely audible above the din. But it was too late. The creature charged, its massive body slamming against the side of the bus. Metal shrieked in protest. Children were tossed from their seats. Timmy hit his head against the window, stars exploding in his vision. The creature roared again, its hot, fetid breath fogging up the windows. Mr. Harris threw open the emergency exit. His voice was raw with urgency. Instinct took over. Timmy scrambled out of the bus, his legs churning as he ran. He could hear the creature's enraged bellows behind him, spurring him forward. He didn't dare look back. He didn't need to. The terrified screams of his classmates were enough to tell him that the monster was still in pursuit. Sarah, S1. Keep running, Timmy! Don't stop! The woods were dense, the air thick with the smell of pine needles and damp earth. Thorns tore at his clothes, branches whipped at his face. But he didn't slow down. He couldn't. Deeper and deeper Timmy ran, the sounds of the creature's pursuit fading with every desperate step. He stumbled and fell, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He looked around, his heart sinking. He was alone. The woods were eerily silent now, the only sound the hammering of his own heart. He could hear voices, though, whispering just beyond the edge of his hearing. Were his pursuers closing in?
Then he saw them, figures moving silently through the trees. They were dressed in dark clothing, their faces obscured by masks and goggles.
One of them turned, and for a moment Timmy thought he saw a flicker of concern in their eyes. Fear gave way to confusion. Who were these people? Were they here to help? Or were they something even more sinister?
Don't be afraid, he said. We're here to help. We're going to take you somewhere safe.
Timmy wanted to believe him, but there was something about the way they moved, the way they spoke, that set him on edge. They were too efficient, too organized. They moved with a military precision that belied their strange attire. A sharp hissing sound broke the tension, slicing through the stillness of the forest like a knife. The air seemed to vibrate with the sudden noise, sending a shiver down Timmy's spine. Timmy turned to see one of the figures aiming a strange-looking gun at something behind him. The figure's eyes were focused, their grip steady, as if they had done this many times before. A moment later, a pained roar echoed through the woods, followed by a heavy thud. The sound was so intense that it seemed to make the ground tremble beneath Timmy's feet. The figure lowered the gun, a sense of urgency in his voice. He glanced around nervously, as if expecting something to leap out from the shadows at any moment.
We need to get you out of here now. There's no time to explain, just follow me and stay close.
Timmy didn't need to be told twice. He followed the figures deeper into the woods, his mind racing with questions and fears. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the forest itself was trying to hold him back. What had they shot? And what did they want with him and the other children? The questions swirled in his mind, but there was no time to ask. The urgency in the air was palpable. As they walked, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, made his heart race faster. He glanced over his shoulder, but saw nothing. That somewhere, hidden in the shadows, something was lurking. He could almost feel its eyes on him, cold and calculating, waiting for the right moment to strike. Something ancient and powerful, and very, very angry. The forest seemed to grow darker, the trees closing in around them, as if trying to keep them from escaping. Timmy knew they had to keep moving, but the fear was almost paralyzing. The figures led him through the dense underbrush, their pace quickening with every step. Timmy struggled to keep up, his breath coming in short, panicked gasps. He could hear the distant sounds of pursuit, the rustling of leaves and the snapping of branches, growing closer with each passing second. Timmy's heart pounded in his chest, the fear almost overwhelming. He looked up at the figures leading him, their faces set with grim determination. They had to get out of the forest, and fast. Whatever was out there, it was getting closer, and Timmy knew they were running out of time. They emerged from the woods into a clearing where a helicopter waited. The children, exhausted and bewildered, could hardly believe their eyes. The helicopter stood like a metallic guardian, promising escape from the mysteries that had haunted them. Its blades whirred, whipping the air into a frenzy. The sound was deafening, yet oddly comforting, a stark contrast to the eerie silence of the woods they had just left behind. Timmy and the other children were ushered aboard. Their questions met with silence. The adults, with grim faces, offered no explanations. The children exchanged worried glances, their minds racing with unanswered questions. As the helicopter lifted into the air, Timmy stole one last glance at the woods. The dense canopy of trees seemed to close in on itself, hiding its secrets once more. He wondered if they would ever understand what had happened. The setting sun cast long, eerie shadows through the trees. The forest, bathed in twilight, looked both beautiful and menacing. It was a place of wonder and fear, a place that would haunt their dreams. And for a fleeting moment he thought he saw it again, the figure that had been stalking them, always just out of sight. It was a shadow among shadows, a presence that sent chills down his spine. The creature, its eyes glowing with a malevolent light. It was a sight that would be etched into his memory forever. What was it? Why had it been following them? The questions swirled in his mind, unanswered and unsettling. The helicopter banked sharply, carrying Timmy away from the nightmare of Twin Pines. The forest grew smaller and smaller, a dark blot on the landscape. But the fear and confusion remained, a heavy weight on his young shoulders. But even as the distance grew, he knew that some things could not be left behind. The memories, the fear, the questions, they were all part of him now. He would carry them wherever he went. Some questions, he realized, were better left unanswered. But that didn't stop him from wondering. What had they seen? What had they experienced? The mystery of Twin Pines would linger in their minds, a puzzle with missing pieces.
But even as the distance grew, he knew that some things could not be left behind. The memories, the fear, the questions, they were all part of him now. He would carry them wherever he went. Some questions, he realized, were better left unanswered, but that didn't stop him from wondering. What had they seen? What had they experienced? The mystery of Twin Pines would linger in their minds, a puzzle with missing pieces.